Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard, along with your host, Bill Stierle. And boy, we've got a very interesting topic for you today. We're going to talk about truth and how a reporter can disperse the crowd. We have a specific video of a CNN reporter who was engaging a Pennsylvania state lawmaker who I guess has been very elusive to the media. And when he finally got him and had an opportunity to ask him some questions, he seemed to do more than ask questions, didn't he, Bill? He seemed to be trying to persuade this person that some of the things that he's been saying are not true. And that's where it sort of starts to go off the rails, I think.
Yeah, I feel, kind of disheartened about it's really my need for awareness and skill that the reporter doesn't stay in their lane. They're looking to prove and or validate and or elicit a reaction from the person, the council member, congressperson that they're talking to, and they're trying, and then that person is then doing the same, so that somewhere in there's going to be a piece of footage that will go viral. So this is when the narrative shows up as fake news. What the problem is that when we use communication in order to raise the emotion inside the listener, this is where the problem takes place, because fake news becomes an assault on truth. So, and Tom, you and I have had many different experiences and discussions around truth. And there's been two graphics that we've actually used to describe truth in the past. And we'll probably figure out what episodes those were in so people can go watch those in the past. But one of them has to do with truth perspective, and I put it on the chart. You can, there, it's a little bit down on our document there. And the truth perspective is that where we look at this cylinder, and the cylinder casts two different projections. One is the observable of a circle, and the other observable is a square, just by the way the light is shining on the cylinder. So this is problematic, because when we start talking about beliefs and points of view, that's what happens to truth. It gets split. It gets split between what is the circle version of truth and what is the square version of truth. And this is what the reporter got stuck in.
He really did. He had, I want to say, an agenda. He really did, and wanted this person who, just to be clear, and we have the video at purchasingtruth.com for those of you who want to see it. We have the link there in the blog post for this episode. But the reporter, who was named Gary Tuchman, he had a conversation with Pennsylvania Republican State Senator Doug Mastriano. And he really went into this conversation, not just asking a couple of questions, which he did do, but very quickly, the state senator felt like, whoa, wait a second there. You see how you just got partisan on that? You just, you started to reveal your bias is what, he didn't use that word, but the state senator was telling him, you just started to reveal your bias. And the reporter kept coming back to him with facts. Correct. Like, well, that there are, 61 lawsuits that have been ruled, and a lot of them by Trump appointed judges that say there was no fraud in the election. That was like one fact, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And then he comes at him with, well, what about the Supreme Court ruled on some of these things? So again, another fact.
No help.
And so it was very interesting to see how this guy deflected and spun that and used the crowd around him, Bill. Wasn't that wild?
Yeah, he did. He looked around and says, and who is the person that decides upon these things? Is it the state congressman is looking around and goes like, well, the people decide. Well, okay. And what the problem was is that said, would you like the people decide? Would you like a certain group of 9 people, or would you rather have 9 people that are looking at a common law that we're in agreement with? Which one would you like there? Because it's the people are voting, to get the world to go the way they would like to go. And what winds up happening is we're back into this dynamic of, is it the cylinder? Is it the circle from the cylinder, or is it the square from the cylinder? And immediately it causes the cortisol and adrenaline to go up inside all of the listeners. Now you got a fight or flight experience that allows the listener, here it comes, to discard all facts coming out of your mouth. That's what it allows them to do, because you're wrong, we're right. We're right because we believe we're right. We may not have any evidence, but we're looking for it because we have the anticipation that raises dopamine and adrenaline when you say we're looking for. Tom, we're coming to a house, and I know someone has buried treasure in your backyard. Tom, the person that used to own your house, Tom, was a gangster, and we found out that possibly there is a suitcase with $100,000 in your backyard. Now, as soon as I say that, even though I just made it up on the spot, the anticipation in your body went up. And even though your logical brain knows, and I've even told you that I've made it up.
Now, it definitely changed my brain chemistry. I can feel it, Bill, because I'm like, wow, wouldn't it be great if there was a suitcase of $100,000 in my backyard? It really, though, it has a actual physical change in my body.
And it does. And I literally made it up on the spot. So we have this reporter who's not knowing what they're doing. They think that their job is to find a gotcha moment or some kind of film clip where the person is going to meander and look not very powerful. And meanwhile, it's unsettling because the things that they're saying is enlisting the fight, flight, and freeze response and cultivating that through a series of tragic language of here's a reward, here's anticipation, and here's uncertainty. What is the uncertainty? Tom, I have it, and experts have told me, and there was a court case revealed that there was a gangster who lived at your house and had $100,000 that they were never able to find. And I have it under good advice. There's a important person that said that. If you want to even see this in really a big time, the Rudy Giuliani call to the Ukrainian folks is loaded with this type of language, loaded with it.
Yes.
This is one we saw. There's a notable person that said that there's somebody, but we're really not quite sure yet. But we do have it. And if you could just bring the announcement, basically, if you can fly the trial balloon for us, we'll keep hitting the balloon up in the air. So everybody keeps looking at the balloon. Meanwhile, we're going to keep everybody in doubt and skepticism, and then cause the level of confusion we would like in order to keep voters where we'd like them to be, looking at the truth. So you can see how unsettling it is. Now, the reason why how the reporter could disperse the crowd is literally provide compassion and empathy for all the people that are standing there. Even the congressperson, even that he was a state senator or congressman.
He's a state senator from Pennsylvania. Yeah. And let me just say briefly what he did, what the reporter did do, because the reporter, after he talks about the Supreme Court, and he at one point says, well, so you don't, there's no higher authority than Supreme Court. He says, who has a higher authority than the Supreme Court? And so then the state senator turns to the crowd and says, who has more power than the Supreme Court? And everybody around him starts saying, the people do, right? So that was how he started. But what was the state senator, the reporter made a bigger mistake in saying that, well, there were, take Arizona, there were 2 recounts in Arizona already, and now there's one with Cyber Ninjas, who's not even an accredited and experienced auditor of things. And he wants to try to convince the state senator to agree Cyber Ninjas is not a credible auditor. But what he does, and you'll see this in the video, listeners, if you go watch it at the blog post, purchasingtruth.com, he said, so he says back to the reporter, so you don't want transparency. You don't want another audit. You don't want transparency. And so anyway, this is where the reporter, I think, really created that fight and flight reaction, right?
Yeah. And the reporter did not handle that back very well. The thing that the reporter needed to say is saying, you would not like transparency. He needed to empathize with himself. Well, you know what? I just feel doubtful and skeptical with a group that doesn't have any experience, and they don't meet my need for truth because they don't have any experience in doing stuff like this. It's sort of like having a group of high schoolers come in and look at the documents, because you would say, no, we're going to take a look at their truth. And gosh, I think really, I feel doubtful and skeptical that they would ever come up with an answer that you would be satisfied with. I want the answer that you want to be satisfied with, but I also want to actually have skilled people there. So actually, I do want transparency. Thanks for asking. Now, can you imagine if a reporter owns the word transparency? It's like, it seems like you didn't like the transparency from the other 2 votes. You didn't like the outcome there. And you would like, and your group of people here would rather prefer a different outcome. Is that correct? Would you like
yes?
Yes. So you would like a different outcome. So you're looking for a different outcome right now. You're not interested in the 2 audits that took place as a version of truth.
They would be dumbfounded. They wouldn't. Anything they said.
That's the emotion. That's the emotion I want. I do not want anger, aggravation, and passion and irritation to be in the environment. I want confused, doubt, skeptical with their own beliefs.
Right.
It's like, listen, you voted for the other folks to be there. And I guess that you're just, I guess people in the state of Arizona really struggle with trust.
Wow.
This group really struggles with trust. And it looks like you're going to keep looking around until you find your version of truth.
That's fantastic, Bill. Now, take a departure point where that state senator says, so who does the Supreme Court have to answer to? I think that was one thing he said to his crowd. Who does the Supreme Court have to answer to? And they say the people. How do you emphasize with them?
The reporter has to empathize with the people now. He would say, the reporter says, so you would like me to hear that the people have the ultimate decision in the voting booth. Is that correct? Yes. And that and you also have the thought that the people are very good at interpreting the laws that we've agreed upon. Is that correct? That means 9 people here could be as good as the Supreme Court. Should we do it that way? Challenge and step through the belief with empathy and compassion. Challenge and empathize with them against, and use, not to prove the person wrong. They would say, listen, I get it. You don't like the outcome, And as a CNN reporter, I'm here to report how much you don't like the outcome. And I'm interested in hearing how you don't like the outcome. And you're actually asking a group of people to find a different outcome. You would like a different outcome, right? Is everybody here? Show hands. How many people would like Trump to be here? Yay! Awesome. So you would like a different outcome for this. Now, if we had more people that didn't vote your way, then would that be okay? I mean, if the other person that you didn't like got there because there was more people that didn't like the way you would like things. See, there's no rigor once we move to the limbic part of the brain. Once that fight, flight, or freeze and the ultimate faint and withdraw shows up that people use, we struggle because we want something so badly. We're interested in the false positive because it validates what we think is true. So the reporter can disperse the crowd by using language to reduce what is happening in that environment and give the Republican an off ramp, because the Republican needs their off ramp because he doesn't have one. All he has to do is fight in a certain way to keep the engagement in order to get votes for the people who believe the false positive. It's really unsettling. They're a little trapped. So he has to look right and left if he wants to keep his job. He can't look right and left and go like, yeah, after this audit, I'm going to accept the results. That's not coming out of his mouth. What's coming out of his mouth is they must have missed something. That starts the entire cycle again.
Well, it's the uncertainty, right?
That's correct. It starts the uncertainty, and that's the fishing lure you throw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in the same spot. And at the 5th time, the fish comes out and bites that damn lure. Fish is now on the hook. This is a problem with messaging that has a propaganda feel to it because it's hooking into a person's belief structure, and the person can't let go and can't get off the hook because they've already agreed in the illusion of the lure. I'm making a scrunchy face for all the people that can't see me. I'm making this scrunchy face going, ugh. And it's hard not to take the lure. It really is, because we want so bad, because we've invested so much in the Trump lure. Everybody, regrettably, it's artificial. And if we look at it as an artificial lure, it makes it easier to see how he's just casting the line with sentences. Even the North Carolina, we should do the North Carolina speech that he gave too, is that he just kept casting the lure out with very, very vague and illusionary statements. And people were just on the hook and they couldn't wriggle off.
Oh, this is about where former President Trump, speaking in North Carolina, is talking about the Arizona audit and the Georgia audit, and that's he's creating that, well, we'll see what happens, and to uncertainty.
Well, some people are saying I'll be put back in office. Holy crap! There's no mechanism for that. There might have been a mechanism if the court cases would have found fraud and would have found it at the great level. Wait a minute. And that's what happened with Gore, v. Bush. I mean, or Florida, the Florida vote. Gore said, listen, for the good of the nation, you go. I'm gonna take a step back here because I am not putting all of us through this. And that's the good of the nation. That's taking one for the team. I mean, he did. He took one for democracy.
Well, he put democracy over, party and his own personal interest.
That's right.
I mean, obviously, he fought it very far through the Supreme Court, and they came down and
there was
stopped the
also
recount. But
that's right. They stopped the recount, and the Florida Republican gal, what was her name, Kennedy or whatever. Her name was.
Bondi, I think, wasn't it? Pamela Bondi or something. I think she was at the time the Secretary of State.
Right. She's going like, no, we're not recounting. And it's like, yikes. It's like, hey, it was close, and you may want to take a look at this. And do that. And think about that, not recounting at all. Meanwhile, think about this from a truth perspective. Georgia recounted 3 times, Arizona recounted 2 times, and they still don't believe it. Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Just take a breath on that and going like, they were looking to make sure, and they validated the results. And the belief is overriding, and the narrative is overriding truth.
The facts. Yeah.
Facts. It's very unsettling. And I know you and I are extending trust right now. I know you and I are extending trust that those 3 recounts and those 2 recounts were done with high integrity. I know that we're doing that. I know that you and I don't have firsthand knowledge and information. I know that my belief is saying I'm going to give it a push because I'm trusting democracy, and I'm trusting the Republicans that counted it in Georgia 3 times. It's like, I'm trusting them. I am trusting the Republicans that counted it. I'm trusting the recounts in Arizona. I'm just trusting it. And I know that I'm extending out on the plank to do that. At the same time, I'm also extending trust to the courts, because if 50 of those court cases would have been, hey, wait a minute, I would be on that side. So I'm extending trust there too. But guess what? Same thing. The limbic brain overrides the front part of the brain. Emotion and habit always wins over logic and future thinking. Always. Emotion and habit, beliefs, always wins over logic and future thinking, because that's the way the brain keeps us alive.
Which is exactly why, if you're a reporter, you cannot combat beliefs with facts.
You cannot do it. Even the news reporters, when it got kicked back to them, they did the same thing. They just infuriated and gave more talking points. Logic and habit, beliefs, always wins over logic and future thinking when the person's emotions are aroused. The logical brain literally shuts off. The future-oriented brain goes into the tank.
What's scary is some of the reporters who aren't even real reporters, like Jordan Klepper, do a better job of empathizing with these people than a CNN reporter does.
That's very true. He actually, Klepper does a great job of going like, so let me see how you do that again. I said, let me hear that thing. So
right. I remember when they were talking about, hey, we need to get to the bottom of what happened there, with the thing in the Ukraine. We need to get to the bottom of that. And he says, yeah, we should get to the bottom of that. It would be good if, there was a trial that could get to the bottom of that, and maybe even with a judge, and maybe even the highest judge in the land on the Supreme Court. And he's like, yeah, they should do that. And then the person he's talking to realizes, oh, you mean the impeachment trial of Trump? Oh, yeah, no, that's not what I mean. He gets to the point where
that's when the person's their logic brain and their emotional brain's going like, holy crap, I'm hijacked with my own beliefs. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I'd like to pick up the sentence, the emotion and habit always wins over logic and future thinking next time. So you and I can roll up our sleeves a little bit on that, because that is something that really allows us to talk about the levels of truth a lot easier. So,
and to help people have more productive conversations, more healthy conversations about these things, and not be name calling, labeling, diagnosing, and creating responses in people that are going to really resist.
Right.
That would be ideal. Okay, Bill. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to that.
It'll be fun. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.